too long, her stories have been buried, and her truth edited by a world that feared her power. You're listening to Sovereign Reality with Natalie. We are here to unearth the goddess, because her story is your story, and her rise is your reclamation. This is about you, authentically and fully you, recognizing your own divinity and stepping back onto your throne. Because the world doesn't need you quiet, babe.
Boss ass bitch. Boss bitch. Boss ass.
Welcome back to the last and final episode. The last and final. It's a bit redundant. However, the final episode of the Sovereign Script, and we arrive today at the final movement of the Gospel of Mary. Unlike most things that carry the weight of absolute truth, this one doesn't end quietly. This ends in tension and disagreement, and it ends in that sharp friction between what is being revealed and what is being resisted. Because sometimes truth doesn't come to dissolve conflict, it comes to expose it. So how this will work is I'm going to, of course, read the text and we'll kind of talk about it. I'll break down the last part a little bit more metaphysically because the last two verses, the way that they're said, the verbiage is very, archaic, for lack of better words. So I will break that down metaphysically. But the rest, you'll be able to decipher what is said. So it's pretty easy to understand what is happening here between Mary and some of the disciples. So take a breath with me as we dive into the full text of chapter 9. And actually, chapter 9 is not missing any pages from what I can tell. It starts with verse 1, and there are only 10 verses. So we'll begin now. Verse 1. When Mary had said this, she fell silent, since it was to this point that the Savior had spoken with her. But Andrew answered and said to the brethren, "Say what you wish to say about what she has said. I at least do not believe that the Savior said this. For certainly these teachings are strange ideas." Peter answered and spoke concerning these same things. Verse 4 reads, He questioned them about the Savior. Did he really speak privately with a woman and not openly to us? Are we to turn about and all listen to her? Did he prefer her to us? I'm sensing a little bit of jealousy, aren't you? Verse 5. Then Mary wept and said to Peter, "My brother Peter, what do you think? Do you think that I have thought this up myself in my heart, or that I am lying about the Savior?" Levi answered and said to Peter, "Peter, you have always been hot-tempered. Now I see you contending against the woman like the adversaries. But if the Savior made her worthy, who are you, indeed, to reject her? Surely the Savior knows her very well." Verse 9. That is why he loved her more than us. Rather, let us be ashamed and put on the perfect man and separate as he commanded us and preach the gospel, not laying down any other rule or other law beyond what the Savior said. In chapter 9, verse 10 reads, And when they heard this, they began to go forth to proclaim and to preach. So just to talk a little bit about those last couple of verses here. That is why he loved her more than us. So obviously the context we know, Peter is questioning why Jesus, the Savior, revealed superior or hidden insights to Mary Magdalene rather than the male disciples. And this isn't necessarily romantic love, although I've heard perhaps Jesus and Mary Magdalene were twin flames. I've heard they actually had a child together. Obviously, again, nobody knows. The only two people that would know would be Mary Magdalene and Jesus, right? So we can't know. I mean, maybe we'll know when we graduate these physical bodies and we go to the other side and we remember and we go home. But while we are here in these human costumes, we don't know. So this is not necessarily romantic love or favoritism, but a recognition of spiritual capacity. So in this context, Mary represents the enlightened soul and the one who has developed eyes to see and ears to hear. So I don't know if you guys remember the first episode where that was one of the things that Jesus says. Those who, I forget the exact words, those who, about having ears, let them hear. I don't have the words right in front of me. My apologies. So she's developed the eyes to see and the ears to hear the inner truths. And then this quote, rather let us be ashamed and put on the perfect man. Be ashamed. This is more representing like the ego's recognition of its own ignorance or limitations and separation from the divine. And it's like the death of the lower self, right? So putting on the perfect man, the Christ principle, this is that Gnostic concept of androgyny or spiritual wholeness. And it means overcoming the duality of the material world. So male, female, good, bad, and embodying the divine image or the true self, right? The inner Christ. The perfect man is the awakened, unified consciousness that is no longer trapped by material or gender-based or ego-driven thinking. So that is what Levi is referring to when he says, let us put on the perfect man. He's not talking about gender in that regard. And then this quote here, separate as he commanded us and preach the gospel. So separate, this isn't necessarily like physically leaving, but spiritual detachment from illusions and passions of the material world. So the powers that I talked about in the last episode, and then preaching the gospel. So true preaching is the manifestation of the inner truth in daily life. It's not preaching dogma. So awakening the divinity within others. And then, of course, this quote about not laying down any other rule beyond what the Savior said. So no other rules. This is literally just like a blatant rejection of rigid, legalistic, and authoritarian religious structures. It emphasizes direct personal experience of the divine rather than blind obedience to dogmas or priestly hierarchies. The gospel here, the gospel, quote unquote, is to know yourself and awaken to your own divine nature. So that's what all of that is referring to. And then lastly, they begin to go forth and proclaim and to preach. Go forth, symbolizing obviously moving from inward contemplation to outward manifestation. It is the action of putting the inner enlightened wisdom into action into the world. So basically, to summarize, this passage is describing the shift from external piety to internal realization. And the metaphysical message is that by putting on the unified or perfect nature within, one becomes a living gospel, free from earthly legalistic constraints. And again, that living gospel meaning knowing yourself and being awakened to your own divine nature. So what's happening beneath the surface here is more than just a debate. This, to me, is more of like an initiation pressure. Andrew and Peter aren't simply just rejecting Mary's words. They're like confronting a reality that destabilizes their entire identity. Because if Mary can receive direct divine teaching, then their hierarchy is no longer guaranteed, right? Peter's reaction is it's funny in a way. I'm always just like, is Peter like low-key in love with Jesus? Anyway, he's just so like, did he prefer her to us? Like, so like low-key jealous. And again, like that's not theology. That's just his ego trying to preserve the status quo, right? I mean, I guess that's human nature. And then we have Levi who steps in just to offer a correction, which lovely. Thank you, Levi, right? He's a girl's girl. And it's not that he's trying to elevate Mary above anybody. He's just trying to recenter the group and the teaching itself, right? He's just trying to bring everybody back to like, no, no, no. This is what Jesus was teaching. Like, come back. Like, it's not about favoritism, right? Come back. Come back to what's real here. Drop the ego. So he asks, in essence, if this aligns with the Savior, then why are you fighting it? And this is the quiet collapse of the old structure. And that doesn't come through force. And essentially what it comes through is recognition. So I invite you to let this land today in a very simple way, just gently. If you need to close your eyes for just a moment and ask yourself if you can, or maybe you need to do this later. I don't know if you're driving or what your situation is at the moment, but if you can take some time out later, maybe you can journal on it, reflect on it, sit with it. Okay. Where in your life are you resisting a truth because it didn't come through the authority that you expected? I'm just going to ask that one more time. Where in your life are you resisting a truth? Like something you know to be true, but you're resisting it because it didn't come through the authority that you expected. And then once you've kind of pinpointed what that might be, I encourage you to ask yourself what it would mean to trust alignment over hierarchy. And just feel where that question lands for you, like in your body, in your mind, in your heart. Because that is the true transmission of this chapter. That truth, like truth with a capital T, it doesn't require permission to be true for you. Does that make sense? One of the things that I talk about in my book, and Girl, You're a Queen, there it is again, is how I often feel like so many of us women, myself included at one point, have just been very disconnected from the things that light our soul on fire, right? We do things because it comes from a hierarchy. We're told sometimes, more often than not, I'm not going to speak for everybody. I don't know everybody's story, okay? I'm not trying to claim that I know what's true for you, okay? I'm just saying that I do get the sense that a lot of women will follow what other people tell us to do. I see it a lot in yoga as well as a teacher. Whenever I've guided classes and I've suggested to do what feels good to you, right? Close your eyes, do what feels right in your body. And there's sometimes a confusion. Sometimes I will just witness women just not knowing. And again, it's not about shame at all. This is truly just, we are so conditioned to constantly being told by people outside of us what we are to be doing all the time. It's the external hierarchy, authority. If you're doing this, you're doing it right. You're a good girl if you're doing that, right? Now, again, of course, we want to be law-abiding citizens. I'm not suggesting to run out and be crazy and do harmful things, nothing like that. This is more so about going back to what I said earlier about doing things that set your soul on fire. What lights you up? What have you said no to simply because somebody outside of you said, that wasn't possible. That's not realistic. That's not blah, 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 blah. Their own fears and limitations told you that it wasn't possible for you. And you said, okay, right? Their truth became your truth. But something inside of you maybe doesn't feel that. Maybe that's not true for you. That's what I mean by that. So it could be any number of things, right? I'm just offering that as an example. Something to think about, something to journal on, something to leave you with as we close out this little mini series here. And so just like how the end of the Gospel of Mary ends with the disciples going forth. It doesn't end with like this little neat resolution. It ends with movement because something inside of them finally shifted from resistance into action. I actually have a little offering for you as well. So if something inside of you maybe has shifted from maybe not necessarily resistance, but maybe there's a little bit of a threshold moment here for you. Maybe there's some sort of moment of like, I want to take this a little bit further. Maybe for you, there's a desire to go forth. I do offer a next step. I've created the Sovereign Soul Masterclass specifically for this. It's a space for embodiment where these teachings become lived, not just heard. So depending on when you're listening to this, the doors open 8/8 of 2026. That's 888. I thought it was quite fitting. The Lionsgate portal. And of course, if you are listening to this well after August 8th of 2026, then the masterclass is already there for you on the sovereignsanctuary.space. And if today's episode spoke to you, share it with a fellow goddess, a soul sister, or anyone ready to rise. And I invite you to follow the journey for more Sacred Rebellion on TikTok and Instagram at Sovereign with Natalie. And for somatic practices and rituals, you can join me on YouTube, also at Sovereign with Natalie. Or head over to www.sovereignsanctuary.space to sign up for my monthly emails. I send one email every month on the 10th. At most, I think you would receive 2. Actually, I will say this. When you first sign up, you get a bunch of free stuff. You get 4 emails from me over a period of a week, and then you'll see just 1 a month from there. So you do get some free stuff when you sign up. Anyway, I do have some more cool little things planned, some more little mini series on the way, as well as, of course, more seasons. So please keep listening. And of course, keep listening to your inner authority. You are so powerful. You know what's true for you, and nobody outside of you, unless you give them the power to do so, can tell you otherwise. All right. That's all I got. Until next time. Stay sovereign, because the world doesn't need you quiet, babe.
Boss ass bitch.
Thank you for walking with me today. Remember, the goddess isn't a myth you're learning. She is a power you are remembering. So go out into the world today and take up your space. Don't filter your truth and don't apologize for who you are. I'm Natalie, and this is Sovereign Reality. Be bold and be authentically and fully you, because the world doesn't need you quiet, babe.